And
Cool.
so that, a lot of great, it was a different crowd that taught the ground school. The 145 was pretty intimidating, and I think it was because it was my first type rating. But I remember we'd walk into the training session, and it was, you know, you'd get beat up a little bit, and you'd go home and you go, yeah, maybe I should apply for another job.
Yeah. SandPiper training, baby.
Yeah.
But this was a different world, and maybe it's because the captain upgrade, maybe they kind of treat you more like a peer versus a subordinate, but it felt like they were talking with you, not at you. I mean, they were giving you advice, and, you know, it was probably some of the best training that I've gone through yet. But it's just, you realize, I mean, the things that were important to you in an airplane before, I mean, gosh, I just want the air conditioning to work. I just, you know, I want it to be comfortable. I don't mind where we fly. I don't mind, you know, it's a great airplane. But I still, if they said, hey, Tony, sorry, we changed gears, you need to be a 145 captain, I do it in a heartbeat. I enjoyed flying that airplane too. So, you know, it's not like I needed to go to this airplane. Beautiful airplane. I mean, they're all brand new. You know, you get in them and you look at the hour cycles and you're like, 70 hours. Holy cow. This is like, it has that new car smell.
Absolutely.
You know, the knobs are still tight. I mean, there's not peanuts on the floor. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And the passengers really enjoy that as well. The new airplanes and the ability to bring in, the carry on, it makes a big difference.
Well, and the seating, it's so comfortable, even compared to legacy stuff. There's no middle seat. It's from a customer service standpoint, boy, it's comfortable back there. You know, look at that.
Yeah.
I like it.
We got the 145 behind me and the 175. For those of you listening or watching on YouTube,
and you won't get me to badmouth the 145. I won't do it.
I like the 145. I thought that was a fun plane to fly, and that thing could, you know, sling ice and go through turbulence and, you know, come out the other end smiling, you know?
Yep.
And the 175, the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
It was a reliable bird, and it was safe. And, you know, talk about a great first airplane, you know? Tony was one of the guys that, since I was still 8 months into the job, I typically, you know, flying on reserve, on a 2-leg day, you know, the first officer would fly the return leg to the hub. So I was, you know, really well versed at the fight, you know, arrival in O'Hare, because that's all I flew. And he goes, hey, do you want to fly the outstation? I'm like, what? Sure. What's the protocol? And he gave me the bullet points and the benchmarks to hit. And he goes, you could disconnect the autopilot, you know? And I said, I'd love to. I just, a lot of the captains I flew with at the time, you know, you're a new jet pilot, they're uncomfortable with it. Tony had been an instructor for 5 years, I think, or something like that. Said, no, I want you to disconnect it out of 18, and I want you to fly it in, Moline.
Let's have some fun.
All of a sudden, you know, okay, I'm still an instrument pilot. I can still put it together. Cool. Even now, I take that with a lot of the new guys. We have auto throttles, and it still cracks me up. These guys, hey, so since you're a 145 guy, can I shut the auto throttles off? I go ahead. Okay, so like at 1,000 feet. No. I'm like, just shut them off through 18. That's fine. And so they get their shoulders all high, and they reach over and they click it, and they go, oh my God, I'm doing it. And, you know, nothing's changed. You know, we're just in a single percent. This is so awesome. And it's fun to have those moments where you'll let the guy, give him a little rope, and you know, sure enough, they go, well, that wasn't that bad. I said, well, you're still a pilot. You know, if we're getting slow, you're going to do something. You're going to push yoke forward. You're going to push the power up.
Yeah.
But it's funny how the people you fly with, particularly in this case, since you were a Czech airman, we had a lot of conversations about things I didn't know about, or technique, and that translates through to the people I fly with now. So you have to remember, when you're sitting there flying in the left seat, it's not two pilots in the room. I mean, you're helping each other out. And a lot of times, since I changed fleets, I'd ask the first officer, hey, you got more experience on this thing. How would you do it? And they'll tell you, they love that.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
and even to this day, I fly with captains, mainline 20, 25 years flying narrow, even wide body airplanes, international experiences, flying into places that I only dream of going someday. And here they are now on this aircraft, on this fleet as a captain. And they still every once in a while go, "Oh, I didn't know that. You just taught me something. My FO taught me something today." And it's not a big deal. It's just, it's nice to kind of hear that, because they all get excited. It's like the day I stop learning is the day I've got to really be careful and maybe think about retiring. Because if you're not paying attention, learning, maybe trying something new, a new technique, as long as you're within the SOPs and you're flying safe and you're not doing something stupid, really, that is how you grow in this industry. We learn, we pay attention to incidences and accidents that happen by reading these accident reports. Not that we're sitting there chasing fire trucks, but we're doing that so that if that ever were to happen to us, that we kind of understand what a course of action that may have worked and maybe a course of action that didn't work, so that we can make better assessments and better judgments. And thank you for mentioning that. That is something that I was very cognizant of. To hey man, we're still in an airplane. Let's fly this thing. So, and it's a little different when you're an FO. You can ask the captain, "Hey, do you feel comfortable with that?" Some captains like, "Well, when it's your leg, you do whatever you want. If I see something bad, I'll speak up." But and those are a pleasure to fly with. And then there are those sometimes that you fly with, and they're like, "Well, this is for me. This is an Airbus. You really should fly with the autopilot on." Okay,
you got it.
So a couple hundred feet, autopilot on. And then minimums, beep, 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 autopilot off. Yeah. That's fine, whatever. I can fly the airplane both ways.
That's it.
So, no, that's great. Now, speaking of airplanes, we've been, watching the video here behind you. I mean, it almost looks like a green screen. You're in your garage. You got your toolboxes and you got your fuselage that you're working on for your RV7. How did you get into building your own airplane? What sparked this?
Well, if we go back to the story of when I was 12 and took my first airplane ride, that particular guy had a house on a private airport. My airport's a public use airport I just happen to live next to, but he was in a private live-in community airport, and he had built his airplane. It was Defiant, a Burt Rutan. Burt Rutan designed the Canard airplanes. They look like Star Wars X-Wing fighters. I mean, they're cool-looking airplanes. 4-seat, twin-engine. He took that airplane to Alaska. He took it to the Bahamas. I mean, he really, stretched the legs on that thing. And I said, wow. And I was building model airplanes at the time. I go, you could build your own airplane? This is great. That's what started the bug. And then fast forward, as I kept building model airplanes bigger and bigger, we're in a 1-bedroom apartment in college at Western. And I'm building a 3rd scale CAP 232 big aerobatic airplane. I have a picture of it on our coffee table. It's the whole living room. I mean, these are college apartments. It's not like, a whole bunch of space. And my wife she was my girlfriend at the time. She goes, "So, how you keep talking about building an airplane? They keep getting bigger. You might as well just spend the money and build the one we can fly in."
God, tell me the truth. Is that when you decided, I'm going to marry this girl?
Yeah.
That was the sales pitch right there.
Nice.
Funny enough, she found the house on the runway too. This was her.
Wow.
Yeah. On my birthday, we came and looked at this house, and she goes, "You'll never believe it." She goes, "It's foreclosed." And I'm like, wow.
That's so awesome.
She's mine though. So, but yeah, this, so obviously building an airplane, you can't just, hang IKEA shells and then go, "I have the technical aptitude to build an airplane," right? There's a lot of metal work. Now, funny enough, I tell people that this is an airplane kit. I'm not an engineer. I let that, it comes with blueprints, but this comes in, pre-printed parts like this, where they're pre-bent. There's some holes in them sometimes like this, there's no holes on this flange, but there will be. And so you have manufactured parts, and sometimes you have raw material that is just, aluminum angle. And so you essentially are building IKEA furniture, except if you mess up, you die, so.
Mm-hmm.
No, but the reason I chose this particular airplane is, Van's aircraft, the RV7. It's a side-by-side 2-seat airplane, 200-mile-an-hour airplane. I just fly for fun. I don't need to go. If I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to get on the airlines and fly there. But there's 10,000 of their airplanes flying, so the safety record's there. They build the wing spar comes factory built and treated for corrosion protection. So you have a lot of the very critical structures pre-drilled, riveted together. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, this is the fuselage. The wings are upstairs in my spare bedroom, and the tail's upstairs. So you start with
planes are getting bigger, and they're still.
So
on
what I did is I sought out people
taking up a bedroom.
That's right. My mom's like, so where am I going to sleep when I stay at your house? And I'm like, well, the couch. And she's like, thanks.
There's a pull-out.
You can just put the mattress on the wing.
That's right.
There you go.
So, it's 25 by 25 feet square, basically, if you put the wings on. So you build it in sub kits. So the first thing I did is they have this toolbox kit. It's riveted together. Yeah. And it's a sheet. I just keep like tools in there and stuff, but it's just sheet metal, and it includes all the skills you need to build an airplane. So my buddies who had built multiple airplanes said, hey, build that box first. Then I took a sheet metal airplane manufacturing ground school where over a 3-day weekend, you build some structures, and I don't even know where that is. That's somewhere in the house. And then I built 3 airplanes with friends, their airplanes, one of them being an RV7. So I actually seen this built top to bottom already. So it was kind of nice. I have photos, and we already did a lot of the mental work to get it done. And then you can go to the factory and buy brand new kits. They come to your garage in a crate, big sheets, pre-punched parts, stuff like that. But I bought them in sub kits. So I bought the tail, then the wings, and then the fuselage, and then the final kit's the motor mount landing gear canopy. And the reason I did that was I didn't want to lay out $20,000. I didn't have it. And it's a hobby I wanted to do. So what I did is 80% of home builders don't finish their airplane. 80%.
Wow, that's a lot.
Don't finish. So I looked at that instead of a detriment, and I go, there's a lot of kits out there that have been bought that are sitting in the crate still. So I found an airline pilot locally, had the whole tail kit, never even took it out of the box, had it for 7 years. I said, what do you want for it? I said, I'm an airline pilot too. Do I get that discount? He's like, no, I'm going to charge you double, And so he sold to me for half. So I think I spent $800 on the tail kit, and you get plans, you get this binder I've mentioned before. It's a play-by-play, instruction manual, if you will, step by step, what to drill, what to fit. I built the tail. I had A&Ps over. I had my good friends that had built lots of airplanes over, and they inspect it, and they go, hey, this looks like good work. Keep going. So now I'm like, all right, well, I finished the tail. Now what? I found a wing in Texas. So bought the wing, again, about half price. It was $3,000. Usually they go for $6,000 to $7,000 brand new. Built the wing over 2 years, both wings. And then at this point, most people don't have a fuselage. I didn't want to buy a project that someone had started because you don't know their workmanship. I mean, I'm going to put my family in this potentially. So you're your own quality control. So I bought the fuselage new from Vans last July, and this was $5,500, I believe. And they ship it in a crate because most people who get to the fuselage, they're at the point where they'll finish the airplane. So I'm running out of garage space. It's heated in here because we're in Chicago, so it's heated and insulated. There's a big heater up there. Yeah. And I was telling my wife, I'm like, this really sucks. We got the heated garage. We like keeping the only rule was her car had to stay in the garage during this process. That's the only rule. She said, well, I think we could, she goes, if we turn the wings a certain way, I bet we can get them up the stairs and in the spare bedroom. And I'm like, that's your call. This is, I don't want to step on the wrong toes here. She goes, no, let's do it. So they're up in my, we have a spare bedroom. It's kind of like an office computer room.
Yeah.
And so I got the wings tail done. I got the wings done 2017, started in 2014. And the fuselage, there's a lot of detail in this thing. I mean, it's upside down right now because you build everything square upside down. And then there's just tons of details. I'm about to put the rudder pedals in and all of that. But it's a fun project. It's just like getting your ATP. It's just like any other massive goal. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. You kick the soccer ball. Last night, I drilled 7 holes. Am I going to build the airplane tomorrow doing that? No, but it's further along than it was yesterday,
Yeah. Can you give us a little preview there of the build so far?
Again, the wings are upstairs, but we'll try to zoom out here. This is the fuselage. So there's the forward half, which is unriveted. I don't know if, is it dimming on you guys? Are you good?
No, that's fine.
And the tail cone you can see is riveted. Half of it's riveted. And it's going to be a tail dragger. And then I can kind of that's the belly of the airplane, whole bunch of ribs. And then this is the front. That's where your feet will go. Again, this is the bottom of the airplane, so it's upside down. And then you can see the spar is a gold color. That's the anodization that the factory put on. But it's coming along. It's a fun project. Keeps me out of trouble when I have too many days off.
Well, it's a great way to keep you in the garage and not out at the local pub or hanging out with the fellas,
and the kids come out and help. I mean, sometimes they just rearrange the parts on the shelf under the table, but it's bonding time for dad and kids, and that's exactly the spirit of this project. Is Wednesday nights I used to have my buddies over and we would all work on it. More than we would usually not get anything done on the airplane. We would just drink beer and sit in the garage. But the point is, it's what an achievement it'll be to take the first flight. I hope I assume it's one of the feelings like your first solo or the first time you flew a jet or whatever. It's going to be one of those accomplishments that, it's a life goal. I've always wanted to build my own airplane, and I've had friends that have had that first flight. You could see it's just something that you have to experience to really get all the, everything out of it.
Yeah. And to have your name on the nameplate there, or the manufacturer for that particular airplane, is pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Do you have a goal for when to complete it by, or you just 7 holes at a time, and whenever that time shows up?
No, I worked on it a lot more before I had the kids and this job. You come home for 3 days, it's laundry, family time, and
kids and work really cut into life.
Yeah. And so I don't let it consume my life. I come out here, an hour at a time. And some days I get a lot done. Some days it's just a couple things. The old answer is it's going to be done on Tuesday. And then, of course, everybody goes, well, what Tuesday? Well, that's any Tuesday. It's going to be done on some Tuesday. But, the limiting factor right now is the financial. An engine from Lycoming is $35,000. I don't have $35,000. So I'm going to either have to buy a used motor or save a lot of money and do it in 10 years. So it's one of those things. If you can't want to, this sounds really funny, but you can't build an airplane because you want to fly it. You have to build an airplane because you want to build an airplane. So my trick is I still go fly. We have an Aranca Champ here, 1946 Aranca Champ. I go fly small airplanes all the time to scratch that itch.
Yeah.
That way this doesn't get rushed. I want to do this right for obvious reasons. I want it when I mess up a part, because it happens, you make mistakes. Shoot a bad rivet, cut a part. You can cut a part too short twice. Ask me how I know. It's right here. I cut it and I cut it again, and it was still too short. But now, you know what? You got to be okay with throwing that in the scrap bin and remaking the part. It may mean backtracking, a little bit. I'll show you actually, the blueprints. There's pages and pages, but the blueprints, look like this. And at first that looks intimidating, but then you realize all it is, just like we've discussed multiple times today, is it's baby steps. It's you make a part, and then you make a group of parts, then you bolt those together and they become an assembly, and then you put the assemblies together and it becomes that. And eventually, I mean, the wings, I thought, boy, I'm never going to get these done, and the first wing took a year and a half because there's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of, I never thought about what kind of lights I want to put in the wingtip. And you get to the point of putting the skins on, you got to figure out the electrical routing. Well, guess what? The second one took 6 months because you already have the knowledge of building the first one. The only problem is, which is my big beef, they only give you a drawing of one of the wings. So they only give you the left wing. So you have to mirror
reverse it.
I've made so many left wing parts and I go, I made it backwards. Throw it out. So it requires an immense amount of patience, and I get frustrated with it. And I walk away from it for a few weeks at a time. It's kind of the mode I'm in right now, actually, is I got free time, but I look at it and it just makes me mad. So
yeah. Oh, and you told me a little bit before the show that part of this build process was that you joined EAA and took some workshops on, fabricating and manipulating sheet metal and whatnot. How has that helped in the process?
Oh, yeah. So, you go up, in this case, EAA has been it's like ALPA or APA. It's a network group of people that all have similar interests. One's for work, one's for fun. But EAA, I've been introduced to people that are mentors on this project now. And then I went up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and they have a metal workshop course. I think it was $100 or something. And you put yourself in a hotel. Yeah, and same thing. They teach you basics of metalworking, and then you build a little project. And that little project is something you can take home and put up on a shelf. But it's the first step. In fact, when people ask me, a good friend of mine, the airline pilot, that's the Czech airman, he asked me, he goes, I really want to build an airplane. I said, no, you don't. I talk people out of it till I'm blue in the face, because the people that should build an airplane are the ones who won't stop bothering me. They keep coming over and helping. But it's tedious. I mean, it's really tedious. If you just want a flyable airplane for cheaper, the math doesn't work out because your labor,
Yeah.
You have to enjoy working with your hands and creating things. And that's what I'm into, just having a project. I was always building motorcycles and stuff like that, as a kid. So
yeah, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into a build.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we've spoken with some guests in the past that really have done a wonderful job building their own airplane. Back on episode 52, we first introduced a former SandPiper pilot as well, Jonathan Gruber, who is building his own airplane. He owned an RV, but now he's building a Lancer Legacy, and he gives a little bit of a tour of that build. He was over in Redmond, Oregon for that. And we had Jonathan back on episode 57, where he updated us with the build and his home airport area, his hangar over in Aurora. And it's a lot of work. A tremendous amount of work. I mean, I get it. I understand the mechanics of it. But I think until you start to tackle a project like this, or know someone that is tackling a project like this, you never really can get a full understanding of just how intricate and how detailed and how time consuming an aircraft build is. So my hat's off to you.
And you really find out an airplane has a soul, because this thing has been so frustrating at times, and we yell at each other. I mean, I've threatened to sell it, and then all of a sudden everything starts going well again. I actually had a pilot who wanted a quick build version. You can get these where you can throw couch cushions in and it looks like an airplane, and you just do the final assembly. It's obviously more expensive, but that's an option some people take. So this pilot calls me and goes, "Yep, I'm good with your asking price. I will get a truck. I'm going to leave Pennsylvania tomorrow." And I just got cold feet. I started looking at all the photos I had taken over all those years and my wife's going, "How could you get rid of that's like a child?" And I'm like, I couldn't believe she said that, but it's true. It's got an attitude and it's got a soul, and so we're okay right now, but sometimes it gets a little dicey.
Sometimes she'll piss you off.
Sometimes you just got to turn the heater off in the garage when you leave for the night.
Exactly. Breathe.
That's what you get.